So it is 7:01. Jody, I don't see Isaac on my screen and I've been flipping screens. Is he on? He is
I'm
on.
here.
Okay. All right, thanks. For those of you who may not know, Barb is not available this evening, so I'm going to be chairing the meeting. So Barb is excused. So we'll start with roll call. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with roll call. Candace?
Isaac Shanley,
Here.
Eileen Nichols,
Here.
Kathy Kopp,
Here.
Jason Arts,
Here.
Barbara Doss is excused, Ken Killian,
Here. Did you hear
Robin
me?
Klein.
Here.
All right. So we have everybody here. We get to honor one of our employees this evening, and that's what we're going to start off with. So it's a proclamation for Howard Crowfoot, who is a recipient of the 2021 William K. Ryan Frank Award. It was presented to Howard on April 30th by the Wisconsin chapter of the American Public Works Association. So I would like to read that proclamation. A proclamation from the city of Platteville honoring Director of Public Works Howard Crowfoot as the recipient of the 2021 William J. Ryan Frank Award. Whereas on April 30th, 2021, Director Crowfoot was announced as the 2021 William J. Ryan Frank Award recipient during the spring conference of the Wisconsin chapter of the American Public Works Association. And whereas this award recognizes a person or an organization that has provided a positive, far-reaching impact on public works programs, services, or policies through distinguished public service and commitment to their community and the state of Wisconsin. And whereas on December 16th, 1996, Howard Crowfoot began his service as Director of Public Works for the city of Platteville. And whereas Director Crowfoot has been instrumental in helping the Common Council and various boards and commissions in their discussions of planning, land use, environmental, economic development, water and sewer, and public works related issues that affect the city of Platteville, its residents, nonprofits, and businesses. And whereas Director Crowfoot has distinguished himself as a hardworking and dedicated public servant, at all times committed to helping his community, and has provided invaluable leadership and guidance on many significant projects. And whereas his colleagues know him as a steady, dependable co-worker and friend who takes pride in his work and his community, and who is always ready to lend moral support or a helping hand when needed. Now, therefore, I, in this case, Eileen Nichols, Common Council President Pro Tem of the City of Platteville, do hereby express my sincere appreciation and gratitude for Director Crowfoot's dedication and commitment to the city, and congratulate him on being the recipient of the 2021 William J. Ryan Frank Award. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Platteville to be affixed this 11th day of May 2021. Congratulations, Howard.
Thank you very much.
There's
It's really a
Ron.
tribute to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Howard.
Thanks.
All right, so the first item on our agenda after the proclamation is a public hearing for ordinance 21, there's no number, amendments to chapter 21 subdivisions. And we'll start with staff presentation. So Joe?
Yeah, I think the reason there's no number is because we weren't really planning on doing this tonight. If you recall, the last meeting, Council President Doss had said, well, we're going to have this on for discussion again at the next meeting for sure, possibly one after that, because there was still obviously some input in there. But when she had said that, I had already sent the notice to the paper to have it published for a public hearing tonight. So rather than create any confusion for any public that might be interested in speaking after seeing that notice, we're going to proceed and have the public hearing tonight, but the council will not take action this evening. And we'll continue with the pre-described plan of doing it for information and action at a future meeting. So just for anybody in the public who may be tuning in, who hasn't heard my little introduction before, this is kind of a comprehensive revision to chapter 21 subdivision ordinance. And there basically a few main categories of why these changes are being proposed and what they're all about. The first one is kind of a follow-up to the housing study that the city had done a year or so ago. The Planning Commission did work on a conservation subdivision ordinance, which basically is another type of development opportunity or type of development that the city would be interested in. So we incorporated that language into this ordinance. The council just recently approved the sidewalk policy, so I incorporated those recommendations into this document. There's some language in there, a whole section regarding parkland dedication as far as subdivisions. That's really redundant with the impact fee ordinance that we have. So the city attorney recommended we remove that at this point. And then there's a lot of updates throughout regarding language that's more in keeping with how we actually do our review and approval of subdivision. Some of it was just outdated. I borrowed a lot of language from a model ordinance and other communities' ordinances that I found that I thought were better descriptive of the process and the requirements. And then the last thing I would mention is since the last meeting, I did make some additional changes there in the document highlighted in yellow. And those were based on comments that were received at the last meeting, and also in relation to I think an email that all the council members received from Christina Fields. She's the chair of the Community Safe Routes Committee. So they had some additional recommendations. So I tried to incorporate those into the document as well. And as I mentioned, those are highlighted in yellow. So you can readily tell which ones have been changed since last time. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for me at this time.
We will have time for council discussion later, but if any council member has a question right now, please just go ahead and ask Joe. I guess I can go through the list. Isaac, any questions right now?
No questions.
Robin? No questions, okay.
No
Ken?
questions.
No questions.
Kathy?
Not right now.
All right, and Jason?
No.
All right, so the next item on the public hearing would be applicant statement. Obviously, it's the city itself. And then we have public statements in favor, public statements against, and public statements in general. And we only had one person register this evening who said he might want to comment. That was Jim Schneller. And Jim, I don't know if you're on. And if you are, whether or not you would like to comment.
Don't see him, so
Okay, I'm not seeing him either. There are a lot of names to look at here, so I don't believe then we have any comments in favor, against, or in general this evening. This then leaves time for council discussion, so I will again ask council members if they do have questions or comments for Joe. You know, now would be the time to ask those questions. As he said, we will not be having action this evening, but again, it's a good time to ask questions if you have any. So Isaac, do you have any questions about the ordinance at this time?
No questions. I've seen this in the planning development meetings, so.
Okay. Robin, any questions? Robin just shakes her head. Okay. Ken, do you have any questions?
My question is, when is this going to come up for a vote? Which council meeting? Any date set yet?
My understanding, Ken, is it will be at the next meeting
Next meeting
in May.
in May. Okay.
Kathy, any questions?
No, well, one question, but more of a comment. This was a lot of reading and I want to give Joe credit for, it looked like a tremendous amount of work to go through it and pull all the old stuff out. I mean, seriously, how long ago was this drafted? I haven't heard of tracing cloth in a long time, but I think you did a really, really good job in pulling it together. As far as a question, I believe it was on page 39. I'm just questioning that it mentioned Paydick as far as getting a statement from them. Was talking, I didn't print that section out, but
There's language in there that basically says any development in the industry park, any questions about sidewalks related to that should go to Paydick for their recommendation
Okay,
before it goes to
okay.
council.
okay, I just wanted to clarify that that's the way it read.
Right.
That's all I have.
Okay, Jason,
Nothing right now.
all right. Then we will put this on for action at the next meeting.
Eileen, I
The
do see Jim in attendance now, so I don't know if he wants an opportunity to speak about the policy since he's here.
Okay, if he is here now, Jim, if you would like to speak, now would be a time.
My apologies, folks. I was on another Zoom meeting and literally just got done. So I'm not even sure what you're discussing and I'm trying to catch up.
All right, we are discussing the amendments to chapter 21. And you had indicated that perhaps you wanted to speak, you weren't sure, so.
Yeah, what I wanted to do was understand what everybody else was doing and I'll have to catch up on it. So I'm at this point, I'm going to have to respectfully decline to provide any input because I haven't been listening to the conversation.
Okay, well, basically, Joe did a recap of the amendments, the proposed amendments and changes. And so if you do have questions, certainly you can reach out to any council member, Jim, or to Joe again before the next meeting. We will be doing action on this at the next meeting in May.
Okay, I will make sure and review all of that again and go through it. And if I have questions, I'll send it to all the council members and add them.
And if you want to register next time to comment, then that would be fine as well.
All right, thank you. Again, I apologize for busting in late here.
Oh, you're okay. And
That's okay. I was
do
on a
see
meeting
Eileen-
right before this one too and just barely got here.
You see, Eileen, also that Lana has her hand raised, so I don't know if she wanted to speak during
Okay.
the public comments section. So just want to make sure we're not missing anybody.
So Alana, did you want to speak?
She's not muted. She's muted, whatever.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't see any comments, so I'm going to go on to consideration of the consent calendar.
There's Lana,
Sorry, Ken.
Lana spoke, but she's,
Oh, I'm sorry. Is she muted? Because I really apologize, guys. I'm having a tough time finding all the people
Oh,
here. So,
okay. Now can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay. Okay.
all right.
When you're having the discussion, because I don't have an agenda. So like if you're talking about an ordinance, if you could just maybe drop a few hints as to what that ordinance is about, because I had no idea what was just discussed. And so I don't know if it was anything I wanted to make a comment on or not, because I don't have an agenda to look at. If it's online, I'll try to find it.
Nope, I'm pretty sure, Lana, you wanted to talk about the ATVs, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so I've got you down on that. So if we get to that, we'll make sure we don't miss you.
Okay, that's all I need, because
All right.
up to
All right.
now, I've been clueless. So, clue me in. Thank you.
All right. Consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature or previous discussion. Please indicate to the council president if you would prefer separate discussion and action. First is council minutes of the 4/20/21 special meeting, as well as the 4/27/21 regular meeting. Payment of bills. C is financial report for April. D, appointments to boards and commissions. There are some this evening for the Tide Task Force, Lynn Parrott and Rosalind Brossard. And for Plan Commission, Jennifer Collins and Bill Closter. In the packet, licenses, 1-year and 2-year operator licenses to sell and serve alcohol. Are there any questions, or is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar, and I have a question.
All right, is there a second? We'll get a second, Ken, and then we'll take your question.
Second.
All right, second by Isaac. What is your question, Ken?
My question is, did Barb give you anything as far as an appointment to the Historic Preservation Commission?
No, she thought she might have one, someone can, but to the best of my knowledge, I did not get any message from her to do that.
Okay,
All right. So we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar, and Candace will vote.
Shanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Killian,
yes,
Klein.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next is citizens' comments, observations, and petitions. The only individuals who have asked to speak this evening have asked to speak about the ATV, UTV discussion, which will come up later. So we'll go on to reports that are in your packet.
Eileen?
Yes, yes.
Whoops. I would like to ask if it would be possible on the agenda under item 9, when we're talking about information and discussion, to switch the item A and B and flip them. So item A is talking about the resolution regarding ATVs, and B is just the general discussion. And I'm only asking that because there has been a considerable amount of public input. We will probably be hearing more tonight. So I personally would like to hear more community members' comments before we talk about a resolution.
I have no objection to that. I think that we can make that change, Kathy. That would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you bet. Reports in the packet. Housing Authority Board, Killian,
no addition.
no additions. Police and Fire Commission, Cobb.
Nothing to add.
Other reports in the packet included the Water and Sewer Financial Report for April, the Airport Financial Report for April, and Department Progress Reports. Does any council member have a question about any of those reports or comment? All right, hearing none, I will go on to our first action item, which is contract 621 sidewalk repair. Howard?
Thank you. This is our annual sidewalk repair contract. We split it into two parts. One for what you would call grinding or sawing high spots between the slabs of concrete, and the other is for full replacement. We sent the bids out. We received 3 bids. And so ASTI Sawing is the low bidder for the sawing at a bid price of $4,558. Augelli Concrete is the low bidder for slab replacement at $14,746.62. The combined price for both bids is $19,304.62, and that is within our budget. So we are recommending awarding contract 6-21A to ASTI Sawing, and the regular contract 6-21 to Augelli Concrete.
All right, I will ask the council members if you have any questions. So I'll start with Isaac.
No questions.
Robin?
No questions.
Ken?
No question.
Kathy?
No questions.
And Jason?
No questions.
All right, and Howard, you are asking for 2 separate motions because there are 2 separate contracts, is that correct?
You can put them together if you'd like, however
Okay.
you want to do that.
All right, so if whoever would like to make a motion to approve these contracts, contract 621A, which is the sawing of the sidewalk for $4,558, and which is contract 6-21A, and then also contract 6-21 replacement of the sidewalk slabs to Allgrill Concrete for $14,746.62.
So moved, Eileen, as you read it.
second,
All right, we have a motion by Isaac, a second by Killian, and we will vote.
Shanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Killian,
yes,
Klein.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Next is the Alliance Smart Poles. And Adam, do you want to start this one?
Sure. We'll let it's Howard and I will kind of take team this one, but as we've been talking about, the city has been working with Alliant on a potential kind of trial partnership for what are called smart poles. And this kind of goes with our entire strategic planning process. If we've been talking about, different ways to utilize technology, specifically we've talked with the police department about, the possibility of cameras to increase kind of visibility throughout the community, as well as also being able to utilize these smart poles for a variety of different kind of methods. There's the ability for Wi-Fi, a couple of different tracking tools and monitors. So city staff has been working kind of with Alliant on coming up with potentially the poles that would be replaced. I know one of the big concerns, obviously, at the last meeting was, definitely the poles that are currently on Main Street were put in by building Platteville and have a lot of recognition and plaques. We have definitely talked with Alliant and basically have kind of agreed on the process where any of the poles that would have those plaques on them will be removed, and we'll have the plaque put back onto the new poles to continue to kind of honor those individuals that donated to help to make those original poles possible. So I guess I'm going to kick it over to Howard for anything that I might have missed.
No, that's fine. You should have a draft of the latest revision. It says drafted as of May 5th, 5 p.m., I believe is what was in your packet. And there's item number 12 specific. I can't remember what page it is, but item number 12 specifically talks about how the plaques will be removed from the current poles and installed on the new poles. So what we're asking right now is that you give the city manager permission to complete the negotiations and authorize him to sign the contract or so that we can move forward with that. Troy Pitts from Alliant Energy is on the call here in case you have any specific questions of him.
All right, Troy, did you want to say anything before we go to the council members?
Well, I think Howard did a good job last time here explaining it on his summary sheet, and then we've just been working through the contract, trying to solve some of those issues with the plaques and a few other things that we said if applicable, because I know last time there was a question about removing bases and things of that nature, and this is more of a generic type. So in this case, we don't see that as being a problem because they should be a plug and play here. So nothing really new. We're just kind of working through that contract that you saw on the 5th.
All right, thank you. So we'll go through the council members, see if any of you have any questions or comments. Isaac?
No questions.
Robin?
I'm sorry if I missed it, but did we get like a visual of what they look like? Is it literally just the pole being replaced, not fixtures on the pole, or is the look of anything noticeably different?
We've got 8 poles that we're replacing, and the other 47 we're just replacing the luminaire on top. And so we won't have, and then the 8 poles that we're replacing, a couple of those hopefully you'll just keep as a spare in case, a car takes out one of the new ones. And if it's going to be 2, 3, 4 weeks before another pole comes in and we have to illuminate that area, we'll just take one of the older poles back out of storage to put in there. So there'll only be 8 poles that are gonna be totally replaced. The others are just the fixtures on top.
I think the issue that Robin is talking about is the aesthetics, correct?
Right, I have to Google luminaire quick. I'm wondering if we're losing
The light,
losing
the
that
light on
light,
top.
that like old fashioned look won't be there on those lights anymore. Is that correct? Or like, am
Yes,
but then I don't recall seeing like what it will look like.
okay.
I think you had that in the packet last week, didn't you, Howard, or
I may
not?
have missed it. It's very possible.
I don't know that I did, and I know that we'd worked with Jack before he retired, and we were very concerned to make sure that these 8 new poles and the luminaires on top for the rest of them will look very similar to the poles that we have right now. And I think we were all in agreement that they were going to look very similar. I can't say that they're going to be exactly the same, but they're going to be very, very much similar.
Okay.
They're very similar, and there was a concern too about the type of light that'll match what you have there on your other poles. And Illuminating Concepts and Telestreets said that they definitely should have no problem. They can match what you have there too, so you don't have 2 different colored lights out there also.
Okay, thank you.
Ken, any questions?
No question.
Kathy
No questions.
and Jason?
No questions.
All right, then the request is to have the city manager continue the negotiations and for the installation of the smart poles. Is there a motion?
I was wondering if I might ask some questions. This is Dan Dargle.
Yeah, for sure, Dan.
Go ahead.
So I did look through the contract. I did notice a couple of things I just want to mention. It says, 1, in item 10, community shall be responsible for all costs and expenses related to internet connections for the poles and hardware. And then item 7, the community shall, at its sole cost and expense prior to the installation of the poles, install any fiber necessary for the use of the poles. Also, I just wanted to remark that the CAN fiber goes down Main Street and utilizes those conduits. So care needs to be taken when removing or replacing the bases because you're within a foot of the fiber optics at that point. So we definitely want to make sure that that's done carefully.
Sure.
If I recall right, Dan, from our last meeting, I believe the engineers in Howard were able to send the specs over, so we did not need to remove or did not need to change out those concrete bases. They were to line up the, I'll say, the bolt patterns of the base of the poles to the existing concrete, because that was one of my concerns, as well as with what the cost that was going to be. And what I believe Troy had stated, that him and Howard are able to get together and get those patterns, so those bases do not need to be changed. So
Yeah, it should be almost a plug and play, hopefully. We sent those bases and the measurements to Telestreets, so they've got those and they'll make the poles to fit them.
Yeah, in general, I think this is a great idea. I just perceive that there's going to be, IT issues to work out, and there is going to be costs involved.
Thank you for those comments, Dan. So I'm sure that Adam and Troy will keep in touch if there's a question. Any other
Sure.
questions or comments? All right, is there a motion?
I would move to approve the installation of smart poles by Alliant Energy, Wisconsin Power Light on Main Street, and authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Shanley,
yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Killian,
yes,
Klein.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, the next item is, all the items from now on are information discussion only. There will not be action. And Kathy has requested that we first address ATV, UTV ordinance and route designation. We discussed this a little bit at our last meeting, and I know that there's further conversations going on in the community. So I don't know, Adam, if you want to add anything to start the conversation?
Yeah, I certainly can kind of, kick off the conversation here. So obviously, as we're talking about ATVs and UTVs, this is a topic which obviously is going to has a wide spectrum of opinions. I think overall the history for Platteville has shown that our community has definitely, been divided on this topic. Surveys have shown that, email responses, I think that council members have received, as well as, myself, have shown that, there are many people that are for it, and there are many people that have concerns that are in opposition. So, obviously one of my roles as a city manager is to, kind of remain neutral in these situations and promote to the council to consider all sides of constituents in the matter, and try to boil it down to kind of what options are available for the city to look at and consider. So, obviously, just to kind of summarize, as you've seen in kind of the staff reports, and obviously I've only been here a year, but kind of coming into, before I was here when this started, it really began as a group of residents who were passionate about ATVs and UTV utilization. And one of the main reasons that, kind of these routes were being proposed was to give, this particular group of residents the ability to utilize their vehicles on designated routes to reach businesses, and also to have access to other surrounding municipalities' trail routes. It also was to provide a pathway for obviously visitors of Platteville to be able to move through the community, and again, access these same kind of key local businesses, as well as areas that got them onto the ATV, UTV trails. Now with this, obviously, there were concerns which continue to be addressed by residents who I imagine have been here from the beginning and are probably here tonight, who are passionately concerned with this topic. Again, we've heard throughout, conversations and previously about concerns related towards, kind of the manufacturing design, what's in the manuals, the DNR versus the DOT kind of enforcement concerns, safety, noise, definitions. So the council made the determination in 2018 to essentially do a trial run, and then in 2020 to expand to additional routes, regulations, and times with an adopted ordinance. This has been viewed by many in Platteville kind of as a compromise for all sides that were involved. So why are we here tonight? Again, is to kind of continue the conversation. Is staff was approached by the ATV and UTV enthusiasts about expanding access for citizens that live within the city, but based on the current routes, have to either trailer their ATV or UTV to an approved street or an approved drop-off location. Again, as we've kind of heard through emails and conversations and with discussion, opponents of the ATV UTV routes, as seen in the feedback, still have a lot of the same original concerns that were addressed when the original routes were proposed. So as discussed, again, this topic is widespread and both sides are passionate, obviously, about their perspectives. So consideration needs to be made by the Common Council on kind of the steps to move forward on how to consider these requests. So again, as we're talking about, one of the options is to expand the routes to what has been proposed by the group. Another option is to keep the routes as they currently are within the ordinance. I think there also needs to be additional consideration made regarding kind of the parameters for the review going forward. As with any issue, it can continually be brought to the council, but when there is passion with these issues, it does get people, riled up, and rightfully so on both sides, those that are for and that are against. So I think some of the things the council is going to want to consider is whatever direction that is made, what are the parameters that, the council wants to do in regards to review? Because, for both sides, what can happen is this can become a continual issue every March or every issue, it's going to be back. And both sides, again, are going to get, passionate and have discussions and considerations. So there are, considerations that can be made in regards to, when you're looking at this, if there are parameters in regards to, whether it's 3-year trial or 4 years or 5 years or different considerations. Those are obviously all things that are going to be up for discussion. Obviously, after this, we're also going to be talking about whether or not the council wants to look at a resolution, which is another kind of piece of this puzzle, is in regards to the state statutes that are out there, and whether the council wants to have the state look into, reviewing some of the statute requirements that they have, specifically in regards to this. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, you're going to hear a lot from those that are in favor, those that are against, and as the council, that is, the key point here is to listen to all of those sides and continue to have this discussion. So I will let Howard and Doug kind of add anything if they want to from the staff standpoint, but that's where we're at.
Doug or Howard, anything to add?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Nothing from me, thank you.
All right. We have asked people to register on our Zoom meetings. It makes it easier to know who wants to speak. And so we did have some people register, and I'm going to just go in the order in which I received them. So first would be Jim Schneller registering in favor. You muted, Jim, so there you go.
I think we've got it. Thank you, Eileen. So to kind of add on to Adam's history of this, an initial compromise, that would be one discussion of how this has moved forward. Another might be test cases. There was a little bit in 18, then there was 19, and it was expanded in 20. I know there's a lot of talk about the safety issue and the design issue and so forth, but empirical evidence seems to show that we don't have a problem with that in the city. Likewise, if you take a look at the number of police incidents that have been recorded, specifically if you take a look at 2019 and 2020, it's down over 50%, even though in 2020 they were open more often. There's some discussion about the loudness of them, and there's some misinformation that's been put out about that. State statute says 96 decibels. If you take a look, and I'm sure the council member has already seen, Mr. Shanley's actually went out on his own and purchased a decibel meter and took some readings on his street, and then took 5 readings at the same distance for a UTV traveling 25, 26 miles an hour. Within a few decibels and significantly less than the 96, in the low 60s. And so I guess my thought is that if we think of it as kind of a test case in 18 just to try it, an opening up in 19 and a further opening up in 20, this thing has progressed with minimal impact, and I would suggest even a reduced impact as it goes on. And there haven't been the mayhem, the bad behavior and all sorts of that, according to the police incident reports that have been forecast. So I, for one, I'm in favor of it. I enjoy traveling, and we do a fair amount of traveling on the county roads and township roads from community to community, as well as the trails. And I would like to see more of that through Platteville. Personally, just as a personal thing, I'd like to be able to not have to go through the backyards to get to a route, but be able to just drive out on my street, Ridge Avenue, down a half a block and get on an approved trail. And there are many others in the city who would do the same. So I would contend that this quote unquote experiment has been pretty darn successful, according to the data supplied from the police department, according to the lack of accidents, according to the continued use, and according to measurements of sound levels that there was a concern about. So I hope the council looks at not only opinion, but factual data on this. And I certainly am hoping that you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, also in favor is Tony Steinhardt. Is Tony on this evening? All right, I don't see him. Chad Digman?
Hi, Elaine.
Hi.
I think Adam and both Jim have also brought up a lot of good points. Obviously, with being president of the Platteville ATVU Club, obviously I'm for it. There's been a lot of discussion over the years. Both sides have done a lot of work and a lot of research. A lot of good has come out of the discussions. There has been quite a bit of misinformation that is getting spread around. You know, I don't like to see that. Like Jim mentioned, you know, it's nice to go off factual data and stuff that actually happened instead of trying to assume stuff could happen or might happen. I did send a letter into the council. I assume that you guys did get that, you know, kind of declaring our intent, you know, of why we want to add more city streets throughout and, you know, move forward. Obviously, we don't want to be bothering you guys every year to try to gain a little bit more. We just feel that it's going to help with the policing and what we've seen in other communities, that there isn't issues. You know, we're running 25-mile in town. We're not running any faster than that, you know, whereas you can actually outside of the city, you know, with other vehicles and stuff. So I guess I really appreciate the time that you guys have all put into discussing this with us, and we're always here to help out with any questions that people have to keep the misconceptions down. So thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, Chad. Tammy Vanetta, who is registered against. Tammy, you're muted. Sorry, you're still muted. Down at the bottom of your screen, there should be a little microphone. There you go.
I am. Okay. I just wanted to say last week on May 5th, I was coming back from an appointment and I was traveling on Furnace Street heading west. And I was in the area of the Century Tower or Century Link parking lot. And there was a car coming at me on Furnace going east. And all of a sudden, I kind of slowed down because I saw out of the corner of my eye, I saw a ATV, a young man on a going very fast, more than the speed limit. He buzzed through that little area there, right there at the church where they just recently put that block out there. You know, it says do not enter. You can only go south on Bonson there. And he came north going through there. I didn't think he looked at me or the other car. He just drove right through there. And I slowed down because I thought for sure that car was going to hit him. It came so close and it really upset me. And so I slowed down and I kind of crept up to that corner and I looked north and I saw my brother-in-law that was driving the US mail truck. And he waved to me and I waved. And then I went around the corner there on Cedar Street. Or yeah, is it Cedar Street? Right by the church there, North Bonson, I guess. Then I came around to see where this kid went to. And when I got around the corner, because I could hear it shut down. When I got around the corner, he was already turned around and he was going to go back on on Furnace. But my brother-in-law said that when he came through that intersection, that kid turned completely around and he shook his finger at that driver because he thought he was wrong and not himself. So then when I got around the corner, then I just went over to the police station and went in to report it because what I saw what could have been a very, very bad accident. And so I don't want them more in town than they already are. It's bad enough we have all the college kids and just kids riding their bikes, like, to watch out for that. And then we got to watch out for these guys too. And this kid was driving so fast. And my brother-in-law also said a couple days later, he says he saw the same kid on that ATV driving the wrong way on 2nd Street from like Furnace to the VFW area way. So he was down there driving. He said he did it twice in one day. So I think these kids, they have to know that they have to obey the law, just like if they were in a car. And he was driving fast. I just was stunned that he did that, and it shook me up. I was shaken up. I'm still shaken up from it. It's because I thought for sure that kid was going to end up on my car, flying off that from getting hit by that car. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tammy. Lana Kaywood.
See if I can hit the right button here. I did find the agenda, so I've got that now. My computer was doing an update when I got down here and it messed everything up. But anyway, my issue with any vehicle in Platteville, I don't care if it's an ATV or a pickup, is the noise. Platteville has gotten so noisy, and yes, I live at a busy intersection. I understand that. But I should be able to sit in my backyard and have a conversation with a friend on my patio. And sometimes I can't do that because the traffic is so loud. And I'm not just pointing this out to ATVs. We do have a fair amount of traffic for a town this size. I would just like to see a noise ordinance enforced. There is a state statute for noise that I don't think is being enforced here with ATVs or any other vehicle here in town. And it's state statute number 347.39. And it deals with the noise of vehicles. And it says, you know, it has to have an adequate muffler, must be equipped and maintained. But this one I think is very interested in that was in the first subsection. I'm not going to read all of this, but in the second, it says no muffler or exhaust system on any vehicle shall be equipped with cutouts, bypass, or similar device, or shall there be installed in the exhaust system of any such vehicle, any device to ignite gases to produce a flame. Okay. No person shall modify the exhaust system of any such vehicle in a manner which will amplify or increase the noise emitted by the motor of such vehicle above that emitted by the muffler originally installed in the vehicle. And like I said, I don't care if it's an ATV or one of these big pickups that goes by my house that has the exhaust coming up out of the bed of the pickup.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a factory exhaust system, I'm pretty sure. And it just seems to me that none of this is being enforced on any vehicle. So that's my issue. I would like to see where it's enforced on all vehicles that they can't have a modified exhaust system that makes them so loud. ATV, pickup, car, motorcycle, anything that has an internal combustion engine needs to have a muffler that's no louder than what it would have been when it came out of the factory. So.
All right. Anything else, or is that?
No, let's just quiet down Platteville a little bit. It's too loud here. And And you know, it doesn't make any difference that I live on this weird intersection of South Court,
Mhm.
Southwest Drive, and Mitchell Street. I just think I ought to be able to enjoy my home and my yard without all of this excessive noise. And there is a state statute. All we need to do is enforce it.
All right. Thank you for those comments.
Mm-hmm.
Next person would be Christina Fields, also registered against.
Yeah. I definitely hope that you vote against this this ordinance. For one thing, we're in a pandemic. This is really difficult for anybody to get on the meeting, and people didn't even know, like, you know, City Manager Adam, he said several times what a hot topic this is. Well, we have magazines, right? We have the 53818 magazine. Why not put an article in there to let people know that this item is up for discussion? It shows up one line on an agenda on, you know, online at a time when people are really, you know, busy because of the pandemic. They might not be able to go online. They don't know how. They don't know how to register. This is not a very easy thing to educate. I don't feel like the city has done a good job educating people on this topic. So I feel like that's really frustrating. Of course, this is, it is a safety issue, and you can't say that there isn't data to support that. A 16-year-old boy was just killed last week in Richland Center on a public paved street on his ATV. So there is a death nearby of this happening. And I would just feel so horrible that this would continue to happen anywhere. And then what, is one death okay? Or if someone just gets hurt or breaks a leg, is that okay? No, it isn't okay. So I really urge you to vote no. You know, additionally, remember that the manufacturers, you know this, the manufacturers say don't ride these things on public paved streets, and yet we're continuing to try to allow this. I think it doesn't even make sense, and I don't think it's ethical. There's zero research on how, if you look up how off-road vehicle brakes work on pavement, there's zero research that show that they brake at what distance that they brake at. So this shouldn't be even an issue. We shouldn't be talking about this. All of our other vehicles have to go through major requirements from federal standards. If anything, we should get rid of all of them. There's a lot of questions about drunk driving and the mismatch between the vehicle being in the DMV versus the driver's license being the DMV and the vehicle being from the DNR. So that's frustrating. The noise thing is an issue. While your ATVs, I believe there are ATVs that can run less than 96 decibels. My point is, if you look at the state statute, it allows 96 decibels for an ATV on public streets, and that's hugely loud. And if you look up noise amplified significantly, and that's equivalent to a jackhammer. And I agree with Lana, we should be able to, no matter where you live in Platteville, you should be allowed to have some peace and quiet in your neighborhood. We do have an issue. What is an ATV? I think that continues to be a challenge. There's many like homemade versions, you know, what are they? So I definitely don't think that they belong in our neighborhoods. There's no business in my neighborhood. You have, currently you have access to go downtown to connect to all the businesses in the area. And so you don't need to go through my neighborhood to get to those businesses. And so again, I just don't think it's fair to the residents of Platteville. We're the ones paying our taxes. We're the ones who'd have to deal with the noise and the potential crashes and the deaths that could potentially occur here, and we know are occurring in places, right? The place is in Richland Center. On the Community Safe Routes Committee has voted against this because of our concerns for safety for bicyclists and pedestrians. The university here in town, the planning commission made up of facilities, the police department, administration, faculty, staff, and students voted unanimously against expanding the routes. And so I hope that you oppose expanding these routes. Thank you.
Thank you. Danica Larson, also registered against.
Oh, I'd like to start off not by singing a song this time. I promise I won't do that ever again, but I appreciate your patience last time. I just have a few short words. The biggest one is some words of appreciation. I appreciate the civil dialogue that's gone on with this topic over the years. I appreciate the process of going through trials and looking at the local data as well as data from other communities. And it just makes me proud of our community that that we've handled this in, I think, a very professional and balanced manner. And along those lines, I really am actually thrilled that you have this resolution put forth that you're going to be addressing next. I think that that's exactly what needs to happen. This issue is bigger than just our town, and I am proud to be part of a community that is going to have its name on a resolution going to the state saying, you know, this is about our community, but it's about the whole state too, and even on a bigger level than that. So again, I'm very appreciative of what you've done so far, and I thank you for this open discourse. Absolutely, my preference right now, just as a citizen, is that I don't feel that the ATVs have been proven to be safe. Once they are proven, I'm absolutely on board with them being in our community. But I know that the ATV UTV group has been wonderfully open and accommodating and considerate in their conversations, and they've done a great job with the way that they've behaved themselves in town. They set a wonderful example, but we don't know if the people that aren't a member of that group who are so organized and dedicated are going to be as good of an example as they are in the long run. So I feel like the compromise that we've come across right now, where we have some streets, but not all of them, is a wonderful place to be until we're able to get more guidance from the state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Those are all the people that registered to actually speak, but I do have a list of people who want to register in favor of the ordinance, so I will just read those names into the minutes. Diana McPhail, Mark McPhail, Edward Johnson, Katie Trentz, Clay Schaefer, Sue Schaefer, Lisa McPhail Blench, and Leland Blench. And then we have one individual citizen who has registered against the ordinance, and that would be Beverly Johansson. So again, I thank you all for taking the time to come and speak this evening, and I will now open it up for council discussion.
Eileen, there was one hand that was raised. I don't know.
Okay. I don't know who that is.
It's me, Eileen. It's Jim Schneller, and I realize I've already spoken, but after listening to one of the folks here talk about things, I realized where the flyer came from, and those are the things that I addressed in my email to the council as some misrepresentation, and I would gladly bring it up now and talk about them and respond, or I'll just leave it as is since I've already talked. Your call.
I appreciate that, Jim. We did receive your letter, and so all of the council members have seen your response to that flyer. So I think that's adequate for this evening. And I would also add that all of the council members have gotten a lot of emails and phone calls regarding this subject. So I think there is a pretty large awareness within the community of the fact that we are discussing this. So we do the best we can to get the word out. So we'll start with council discussion. Isaac?
Eileen,
Yep.
Eileen,
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you again. There is another hand that's up in the screen.
Yeah, and again, folks, I apologize if I don't see your hand. I also apologize because we do ask you to register ahead of time so that we can know that you would like to speak. We did set up that rule after we had an episode online and are really trying to be cautious. So Amy, I see that you have your hand up, and so I will let you speak, and then Julie Hamilton. But again, we would really, really appreciate it if you could register ahead of time. It would really help us. So Amy.
I just have a clarification too. I'm sorry, I'm one of those people that didn't realize I had to register in advance of the meeting. I was used to the other way of doing it. And I also don't see on the agenda where it says I have to register if I want to speak or how to do that. So I don't know if that can be made more clear in the future, but I'm looking at the agenda and it does say I need to register, send an email in order to get the Zoom link. But anyhow, it's not very clear. That's a sort of separate issue.
Yeah, so we do put that on every intro, and this is where, again, this is tough, but that's on every Facebook post we put out, has that on there. We put it in the paper. It's tough, but yeah, we have kind of, because of issues that we've had, that's kind of been the approach we put. So in any communication we send out, I know our communication specialist even tries to go out and put them on some of the, other non, specific city of Platteville ones. I know there's the P Vegas discussion that goes out there, the things of interest. We do try to communicate that as much as possible about pre-registering and where to go.
Yeah, it's just not on the packet itself. I don't see it, at least, unless I'm missing it. But thank you, Adam.
Sure.
I just wanted to echo Danica. I think she had a really enlightened approach to this conversation. I think having a hobby that you're passionate about is important. I have a ton of hobbies that I'm passionate about, and I think that's important to a good quality of life, and it should be a value that we want to uphold as a community. And if ATVs, UTVs can follow the rules of the road, heck yeah, let's have them, right? Let's change the decibel requirements. Let's change the drunk driving requirements. Let's work with the state to be leaders in fixing the insurance loophole. Let's make sure that if we open all these roads, that they follow the rules that everybody else has to follow when they're using the roads. And I would just come back to this as a conversation in many ways of fairness. We all want what's fair. I think that that's a value that's pretty universal. And if we can make sure that the ATV, UTVs follow the same rules as everybody else, let's do it. So thank you for listening to us and hearing us out.
Thank you, Amy. Julie?
Hello. Hi,
Hello.
Eileen.
Hi.
Sorry I didn't register. I guess I didn't realize that about that either. I am actually coming a little late into this. I didn't realize that you were looking at increasing the usage of the ATVs on the streets. I guess my feeling is the streets in Platteville certainly seem busy enough, especially on a Friday afternoon at the corner of Alden and Water Streets. And also I agree with several people who spoke about the noise ordinance enforcement. I would really appreciate if just even that would happen. I do have a question also about, and maybe others know this, do they pay like a city fee to ride on the streets? Like we do the cars and stuff. I don't know about that. And then another point I'd like to make that was brought up earlier, I guess, they said one of the ATV folks said that they had to trailer their ATVs to go to the trails. Well, a lot of the county trails, and I've been on many, the ATVs have their own trails. And I guess I'm wondering if you live here in town and you bought an ATV, or if somebody bought a snowmobile, I guess what were you thinking you were going to do with it? I think that probably a lot of people had their ATVs before they were allowed on the city streets. So I am definitely against increasing street usage for ATVs. And I'll let you answer the question about the registration, the fees that they would have to pay, or that they maybe do already that I don't know about.
Actually, you're probably referring to the wheel tax, and because ATVs, UTVs are licensed differently, they do not have to pay the wheel tax.
Oh, even though they have wheels.
Even though they have wheels.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's one of the things that has been brought up before, Julie. So you are absolutely correct about that. I would also like to just clarify, just for everybody who is on the meeting tonight, because we do try to get the word out when we discuss things. And at the bottom of the agenda that is published, it does say to attend via Zoom, please email cityofplatteville@platteville.org with your request to obtain the meeting link. This request must include your name, street address, email address, and reason for wishing to attend. Registration would be required by 3 p.m. on Tuesday, May 11th. So by 3 o'clock today, that gives our communications director time to collect all those names and then give them to me or Barb, who's ever directing the meeting. So, you know, I realize that in some ways it's a difficulty. It's not how we used to do it, but you know, we live in unusual times. And so we're doing the best we can, folks.
That still doesn't explain how to get to speak.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I still don't understand when it says that. It's not clear to me that that's how I can be on the agenda to be able to speak or not speak. So is that the same?
Your reason for wishing to attend, so yes.
Oh,
then
so
you would
that's
have the
saying if
opportunity
you want to
yeah,
speak.
You would have the opportunity if you want to speak.
Okay, okay.
Yep, and if you ever have any questions, please just call City Hall and certainly, you know, we can clarify it. All right, so I don't know that there are any other hands up. I think we're going to go on now to comments from or questions from city council members. And Isaac, you are first on my list.
All right, I'll kind of just go backwards here because I see that Julie is still on the call here. So Julie, I also want to make sure that you're aware of for the wheel tax, that there are multiple other vehicles that don't pay the wheel tax as well. Buses, any motorcycle, a moped, a motor home, any vehicle such as an antique or collector vehicle, you know, Camaro, Chevelle, older vehicle that's I think 20 years or older and has regular plates. Any trailers, you know, a truck that has farm or dual purpose. So there's more than just the ATVs that don't pay the wheel tax. There's a whole range of vehicles that are exempt from that as well. So I just wanted to clarify that right up so you weren't thinking that the ATVs and UTVs are the only ones that weren't paying the wheel tax. So I do want to go back to some things that I think Jim Sneller was going to get to on Christina's comments. So the first one was about the death outside of Richland Center. And it was tragic, you know, and any death is tragic no matter how it happens, but that did not happen in the city limits of Richland Center. That happened on a county road that had a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit. I can name off the road if you like, prefer not to. I know exactly where it happened. I've been on that road myself before. The situation of how that happened, you know, is still ongoing and you know, is unknown what happened. I just want to make sure, you know, that not happen in the city of Richland Center that has a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. So, you know, and some other things, you know, what can be on the road, you know, and again, I'm gonna kind of call her out on this because this is some of the stuff she keeps spreading around. And this information is easily available within just typing it in on your web browser. You know, homemade vehicles or homemade ATVs and UTVs cannot be registered and placed on the road. They have to be a commercially manufactured unit to be on there. As for the noise, you know, the majority, you know, why the state chose 96 decibels, I don't know. I've talked to a couple of wardens. They don't know either. That's what it is. You know, I've done some tests in town myself. I've actually went out in the country and did some tests on my machine as well as some others. I actually carry my decimal meter with me just to see if another one's louder or not. But I'll admit I had to break the law to do this. I was outside of town. I was doing 65 miles an hour in mine. It's about as fast as it goes. I still couldn't even hit 90 decimals on mine. As fast as I could get that thing to go and revved up. The test that I'd shown all the council members, and I'd be happy to pass it along with anybody that wants it, not just council members, you know, was at 25 miles an hour in town at 50 feet. When I went to 10 feet at 25 miles an hour, mine was at 80 decimals. Still a far cry from 96 decimals in here. Sure, you may get one that's a little bit louder or is quite louder, but as, let's see, I believe a couple people here, Laney Kaywood was one of them. You also have that with vehicles, you know, trucks, motorcycles. There's even a moped that goes by my house that's substantially loud. So, you know, there's other vehicles as well, and not just to choose it out here. So, you know, I feel that that's a scare tactic to keep throwing that 96 out, but the majority of them are not that loud or not even close to being that loud. Jim Sneller, Chad Digman, and a couple other people that have spoken here over about the last couple of years. You know, our group, not just our group, but other people, the average person has shown over 2.5 to almost 3 years from now that all the stuff that people thought were going to happen, you know, routinely happening, has not happened at all. As Jim has stated, in 2020 from 2019, there's a 50% reduction in calls to the, excuse me, the police department. And the majority of them were people being off route. If you also were to take some of those now, over half those from 2020, 2019 would not be considered off route because they are on an existing route here. So And I've had a couple conversations on the phone with some people in my neighborhood, people that are for and against it. And as I spoke with them, I said, I'll talk to anybody about it as long as it's based on facts, not just if I want it in my neighborhood or not. As I told some of them, some of the people that did the initial survey when we had that in 2018, whether that survey was done correctly or not, or what the correct answers were, some of the people that were against it at that time that do live on routes now and have for the last 2.5 years had now stated that they would change their mind on the questions of that survey due to the fact that what they thought may happen negatively has not happened. What else I have here? I think that might be about it for what I have right now. So.
All right.
And I do want to say one more thing. As I also did tell the group on the phone, and if you've listened to me in the past, I've always stated this, including myself and the people in our group. We agree if there's something that somebody's doing that is wrong and illegal in here, call the police department. We completely agree that they should be prosecuted as well. We're not out sitting here making excuses for them. So if something is happening and done, or somebody thinks something is wrong or against the law, call the police department. Let the city know about it. Let us know about it. There are times that we can help police this and correct this as well. So, to live in the fear of something may happen, I'm sorry, but I go by the facts and what history has shown, and to continue sitting there thinking, well, we don't want this because this may happen, to me is not an excuse not to approve this.
All right, Isaac. Robin?
I'm not ready to go, but I guess I'll make it happen. I really struggle, I guess, on the end note of what Isaac said, the living in fear piece. So as a teenager who had a traumatic event happen with other teenagers having fun, and now as a mom of teenagers, fear is unavoidable, but I see a lot of people not getting out of doors. And this year was, even an exaggerated case of people isolating and staying indoors. And I know it's not maybe the most active, healthiest way to get out of doors, but I certainly appreciate ATV, UTV enthusiasts getting out and connecting with nature. So I have all of that sitting in my mind. But what really I feel has to be said, even though I don't like putting it out in the air, is that it infuriated me. I was really upset to see this back on the agenda this year right now. This has been a really intense year for a lot of people. And I think it gets kind of to the point that's been mentioned on the subject before, that for some people, life went on. Nothing changed much. And maybe you had other reasons that you wanted to push this topic more this year. But for a lot of people, this is the furthest from priority. And we spent some good amount of time in these meetings talking about some important things. I don't know if important was the right choice of words right there, but things that haven't necessarily risen to the top of this council's agenda before, that I'm really glad we've addressed this last year. But it's frustrating to have so much city energy put into this topic. And I see the counter argument of maybe we should have just opened up all the streets in the first place and let this move on to the next thing. But I think it was fair to find a compromise. And I think that it was fair to ask for a test and trial period. And I don't think this last year was fair to count as our trial period. So I don't know what that means for when we would say enough of a trial period. Are we opening up the rest of the streets? I just have to put that out there, that it was tough to swallow, that it's here back on the agenda already. As far as that wheel tax conversation, I don't think that it's fair to ignore. I think there is the option for some sort of sticker specific to the city where we could collect some sort of acknowledgement by out-of-town guests and use of the streets, as well as in town, specific to ATVs, but I know that's a more complicated piece. I I do feel like the unique individuals who are being really dangerous, reckless, loud, we should call them out, police them as need be, not necessarily make all of our rules more extreme because of the occasional kind of rogue individual who insists on being not following any of the rules, whether it be ATV rules or not, but just rules of the road. I'm seeing people on streets in my neighborhood that are not on the route, so fairly regularly, and they're it seems to be out of town groups coming from Mound View and just kind of cutting through. So either better posting or, like discussed here, opening it up. So if we don't open it up, I think we need better signage for some of the more obvious shortcuts. Feel like I had something else. I don't know, but to be fair, I do enjoy seeing them downtown on the weekends. I feel the energy of people getting out and enjoying our businesses via this route. I definitely have concerns there, especially Broadway Street. It's pretty clear that they're traveling fairly often faster than even cars. So there's some tendencies, I would say, for speed issues, but I think that's about all I have on my list right now.
Okay, Robin. Ken.
Okay. The first thing is about this 96 decibels. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. I am going to read a little bit from the Wisconsin Noise-Related Statutes and Administrative Code. And the first part given here is 23.33, all-terrain vehicles. Under 6M, it talks about noise limits. And it says here that no person may manufacture, sell, or rent, or operate an all-terrain vehicle that is constructed in such a manner that noise emitted from the all-terrain vehicle exceeds 96 decibels on the A scale. So I'm emphasizing the A scale, so that the A scale is actually lower as far as a number than the dB scale. And this needs to be corrected as far as what's being presented as far as in the information. We're talking about 96 decibels, and actually we're, according to this from the state of Wisconsin, we should be talking about 96 decibels on the A scale. Now, what's the comparison between the two? Well, the comparison between the two is that decibel reading as compared to the A scale, the decibel reading is 10 to 14 higher than the dBA. So this means that 96 is actually 100 is actually 106, 110. Let's see if I got that right. It's 10 to 14 higher. So 19. So 96 plus 10, 10 more plus 14 more. 10 to 14 is the range. So this reading of 96 we're using, according to the state, is incorrect. But that's not my main concern. An AT vehicle going that speed is going to be very, very loud. My concern is about interpretation of the data. And back when we were working on the Roundtree House and the noise in that area, Frank Evans came up with this data from the World Health Organization. So this is about interpretation of the data which you have collected. So here's what he found. It says up to 30 dB night outside, there's no substantial biological effects being observed as far as upon the people in the house. 30 to 40 dB, number of effects on sleep are observed. Effects seem modest. 40 to 55 dB, adverse health effects are observed. Above 55 dB, situation is considered increasingly dangerous for public health. So we need to find what the effects are of these different readings upon the people that are occupying these houses or being outside these houses when ATVs or UTVs go by. So this is what we need. We need interpretation. So that's the main issue. And to me, it's when you look at the data, when you look at the recommendation from the World Health, it says 40 to 55. Well, we look at the data given to us, and on the back page, here's what is this? A Can-Am Defender, 61, 62.9, 62, 61. These are readings that are all above what is recommended according to this interpretation. So we need to find the data which tells us how to interpret what these readings mean as far as the effects upon people. And there are effects. And so this is going to require some time, and we should be getting that information. So as it stands now, with this information, there are ATVs, UTVs, which are not meeting the requirements as far as lower noise. So I think that's all. Well, I'll say one more thing, that I have observed these vehicles close up as far as noise, and they are noisy. And I observed that they are, in fact, noisier than cars. And they were noisy for a long distance down the trail. I observed them at Mineral Point, and Mineral Point allows ATVs, UTVs through the whole city, except on High Street, which is the main street. But I think when talking about cities, towns, we have to talk about the characteristics of these cities and towns as compared to Platteville. So we may find that Mineral Point is all right with ATVs, UTVs, but they're in a different setup because their roads are much closer to the high street. So who knows what the real response is as far as concern by people. So I think I'll stop with that. At this time, I believe that we've done a compromise on this. I believe that this is sufficient, and I believe we should be stopping at this. I do not favor going into the residential streets. The residential streets, I want those to be quiet and to have people have a better life as far as being quiet and enjoying their neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Kathy.
Okay. Not even really sure where to start. Since this topic came up, I have made it a point to talk to a lot of people, and most of the council knows we did receive emails. I had untold number, I didn't even keep track of phone calls I had, visits to my house, people that stopped me on the sidewalk, people that I stopped on the sidewalk, just trying to get a sense. I talked to people very opposed to any kind of an expansion. But I talked to a very much higher percentage of people that would like to see more streets opened. I personally do not have an ATV, UTV, but I one of the things that I think I want to say is what collectively I have heard. We've heard a lot tonight about safety, about noise, that type of thing. But the community people, what I have heard is, and you may ask, well, where are they? Why aren't they writing letters? Why aren't they here? I guess I feel that that's part of my responsibility as a city council person, is to talk to people. And I am very sad to say that I talked to two individual people that were both very much in favor of opening the streets, but were adamant they did not want their names used because they feared that there was going to be lashback to them. And I think that's sad, just as a society, that people are to that point. The noise thing, I understand why people are upset. But one comment that I did hear tonight was about not wanting these ATVs, UTVs in their neighborhood. Well, that's kind of interesting. I heard that tonight because I also talked to a couple who, again, were very pro opening the streets for more access. And they said, their comments were, well, we didn't want the bike lanes in our neighborhood, and they made us have them anyway. So it's sort of like, okay, you want things, but maybe not in my backyard type thing. Something also that was a very strong talking point was the conversation about safety. And I heard so often people were saying, well, if you want to talk safety, then you better be looking at bicycles. I see so many bicycles running stop signs. I live on 2nd Street. It's a one-way street. If I had a nickel for every time I saw a bicycle fly down 2nd Street, young kids, no helmets, and now starting to wear earbuds, that to me is a safety issue. Do I want to run out there or call the police department and say, you need to come down here and start monitoring this? I'm of the opinion, people know the law. They know the risks that they're taking. And hopefully parents are doing a good job educating, especially our young people, about safety, how to cross the street, the fact that they should know better than to ride a skateboard down my retaining wall. It's this topic, whoever said that people on both sides are very passionate, that's absolutely true. I heard it. Today especially, I was just like almost overwhelmed. I'm also concerned about the tendency of people, the group that I know that have ATVs and UTVs, my daughter and son-in-law have them, but they live on a farm, is I hope we tone down any talk about stereotyping the group that are riding these machines. Yep, you always get somebody that's gonna go faster, try to do a wheelie, do whatever. But I have heard also from people that say they live on the trail and on the route, and the ATV people that they see are some of the most respectful people. So it's very much, I mean, I'm sort of overwhelmed with all kinds of information and feedback, But then I just double checked when the conversation about the wheel tax with ATVs and UTVs. On our city website, how many people are aware that you have to have no person shall ride a bicycle in this city without a license? How many of us have licenses on our bikes? So my point of bringing that up is that I'm looking at Chief McKinley sitting here. I do not want our community to turn into the type of community where we police everything. I want Platteville to be a very warm, welcoming community where people can feel free to do the things that make them feel good as long as they're legal. So I guess my bottom line where I'm at, I am in support of opening more of these streets up to the community. And if, you know, the question comes up, well, how long do we do this? The city has the power that if something isn't working, if there's too many incidents where, you know, where there's the police involvement or having to write tickets, simple enough, we rescind it. And I think that speaks well for the users the last 3 years. With the numbers dropping, I think we need to give credit to the people that are utilizing those machines, that they understand that privilege could go away. And I'm going to stop with that.
All right, Jason.
So first I want to just address a comment made by Alderperson Shanley in terms of the accusation of him saying that there's community members using scare tactics. So Chad Digman, the president of the ATV UTV Association, in his letter to the city council, in one of his 6 reasons, the fourth one is the city of Platteville is about to gain a major employer, which is stated that approximately 220 plus jobs will come to town if the city of Platteville keeps with minimal limited routes and the surrounding municipalities have open routes. The city of Platteville will indeed lose out on some employees relocating to Platteville. I guess I kind of see that as a scare tactic too, in terms of, you know, that being speculation. We can't prove, we don't know, you know, what these people are thinking in terms of coming into our community. So I think we can take that argument off the table. Another argument that has been used a lot is, oh, we can't live in fear, and look, our worst fears haven't come to fruition. Well, we can easily turn that around and say, well, maybe because we've had limited routes and people haven't had access, maybe that's why there hasn't been issues. So we can also take that off the table as well. So now if I can go into some other things that continue to be ignored by the ATV proponents and continue to be sidestepped by a lot of people in terms of this argument. The first one is the safety training for ATVs. And so all somebody needs to do is complete an all online safety certification to operate an ATV. And the DNR website says that this online course only takes, you can complete in about several hours, does not require anyone to ever step foot on an ATV. And it has no component in terms of how to operate these machines in a residential area. There's also no road test required of ATVs in terms of having that as a component to be able to ride on the road. Compare that to motorcycles. In order to operate a motorcycle in Wisconsin, first you need to have an instructional permit. And then in order to either, you can sign up for a motorcycle safety course. That motorcycle safety course includes 5 hours of in-class instruction in terms of how to operate that motorcycle, and 10 hours of on a road course where you're learning how to operate a motorcycle in traffic conditions and learning how that motorcycle is going to respond on pavement and cornering. So there's 10 hours of that as well. Or you can go the route of going to the DMV and signing up and doing a road test where you don't have to have the safety certification. You can just do a road test through the DMV and you get your Class M license. So there's a huge difference in terms of just the safety training and what is required in terms of safety especially for machines that aren't even designed to be used on the roads. Motorcycles are designed to be on the roads and they still require to have extensive safety training and a special Class M license endorsement on your license in the state of Wisconsin. Let's see. In terms of, again, going to the standards of ATVs, they are regulated through the DNR as classified as off-road vehicles. So they are subject to DNR penalties, DNR regulations, DNR enforcement. They don't have the same penalties in terms of, what somebody in an automobile, a truck, a motorcycle, if there's a traffic violation, that goes against the person's license. There's other penalties, there's other standards that you have to hold to. ATVs get to skip all of this. They're not held to those same standards because they are in the off-road vehicle category. Again, in terms of the DOT standards, a dual sport motorcycle needs a Class M license, even though you can ride that on trails as well as on the road. You still need to have a Class M license to operate one of those. And also it has to meet certain DOT requirements to be both operated off-road and on the road. So you have to have specific tires for safety. You have to have, there's certain emissions tests that you have to meet in terms of the motorcycle. So they're subject to that as well, even though you can use them both on and off-road. The other thing is the classification of ATVs, and this is more so, not so much like what is an ATV, but just the classifications within ATVs and UTVs. There are different engine sizes, engine displacement. There's different categories. There's sport quads, there's racing quads, there's your traditional ATVs, there's your UTVs. Again, any of these vehicles, according to our ordinance, the way that it's written, as long as it meets those requirements, people can legally ride that on the road. Again, if you've seen sport quads, I owned one back when I was younger, a Honda 250R. That was what they used to race in Supercross in terms of ATVs. We had one, and it was legal because we registered it through the DNR, and we did everything that it had a headlight, it had a tail light, everything that meets the requirements for the ordinance, but that vehicle had no business being on any public road. This is not addressed by anything in terms of the ordinance. And I've heard that the ATV, UTV club in the past has said, well, we'll tell these people that they can't use them on the road. Well, I would say no, because if you want this ordinance, you're going to allow people to, if they're following the ordinance, they have the right to use that. So how are you going to address that? Mopeds in comparison, again, two-wheeled vehicles, mopeds, motorcycles. In order to have a classification, mopeds, because they have a limit, your traditional moped has a limit of 50 cc's. So it does not require a Class M license. You can just use your driver's license. And there are also exceptions, and there's requirements that vehicles up to 130 cc engine displacement also does not need to have a Class M license. Anything above that, you need to have a Class M license. Again, ATV, UTVs have nothing in terms of separating things out via engine displacement, or it has nothing that separates out what the different classifications in terms of sport quads, racing quads, UTVs, ATVs. Let's see. Probably talk a little bit more about some other stuff in the resolution section as well. The economic impacts. which was originally what the proponents of the ATV ordinance came to the city of Platteville was for. They argued that this is going to bring in a lot of money. This is going to increase tourism. We want this because, you know, all of these great impacts in terms of our businesses. And so we were able to reach a deal in a compromise where the routes that we have now are accessible to people outside of our city. They're accessible to most of the businesses. Unfortunately, some are left out, but the majority of the businesses are within these routes, and it's accessible to people coming into town. People coming into town for tourism are the ones that are bringing in unique tourism dollars. People that are in town that just want to ride their ATV around for errands, that it's no different than me saying, oh, I'm going to take my van today instead of my car. I'm still going to go do the same errand. I'm still going to go to the store. I'm still going to go to the restaurant. I was already planning on that. Maybe if I had, a special vehicle like a motorcycle or an ATV, maybe I would have more of a tendency to go out and spend money in a business. But where our dollars, our unique dollars, tourism dollars are coming in are from people outside of the community coming and using our businesses versus people in the town that just want easy access to be able to use a different vehicle. And I guess that just kind of lends me to, in terms of all of those points that I hit, the question that I continue to have and that doesn't seem to get answered by the proponents of the ATV ordinance, or the expansion of the ATV ordinance, is what makes these vehicles so special, so unique that they don't have to be held to, I'm not even saying the similar standards as motorcycles or other vehicles, but something similar in terms of the standards. What makes these special that you can just, get by with different rules, different regulations, and just think that that's okay. So I guess that's where I sit is, this is a recreational sport. I think Alderperson Shanley had mentioned that last time that these vehicles can cost upwards of $35,000 to $40,000. That's your choice to buy that. You know what you're getting into when you buy one of these vehicles. You know that there's limitations. You know that there's places that are authorized to ride. You know that there's places that aren't authorized to ride. And so just because you own one of these things and you're inconvenienced because you have to trailer your vehicle to a spot that has access to the approved routes, that's not the city's problem. That's not the community's problem. That's your responsibility to figure out how you're going to do that, because you were the one that chose to make that purchase. Nobody forced you to make that. You knew what you were getting into. That you need to take when you make that decision. And it's not the community's problem, and it's not the city's problem to fix that for you. That's all I have right now.
All right. This has been a contentious subject from the first time we discussed it, as Robin said, probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't believe that many minds have been changed. The request in front of us is to open up almost all of the city, except where realistically the vehicles wouldn't be allowed to go anyway because of the speed limit. Honestly, I'm still mulling it over. I think that part of me agrees with Kathy. I don't know that people liked motorcycles on the roads the first time they started, or bicycles, going up and down country hills when you're coming up over. I've said this before, you come up over and you got a bicycle right in front of you, scares the heck out of me. Same way with an ATV, UTV, but realistically, that's how we're living. And a lot of people enjoy bike riding, and I don't really want to take that away from them. The concerns about the fact that these vehicles were not meant to be used on a city street or a road, I get that. It's a valid argument. I don't see, now Jason has proposed a resolution. I think that's a good first step, but I don't see how as a council we change that. So ultimately the decision comes down to whether or not as a city, we want to follow the lead of some other cities that have opened up all the streets in their communities, or we don't. I will also add that I don't think in terms of the economic impact that we can fairly judge that because it was a pandemic. and the restaurants weren't open in some cases, or the other areas that maybe people would have traveled to. So I think that that is not a valid argument that evidence can't be provided. 2020 was just, you know, it took everything and turned it upside down. So I'm still mulling it over. I appreciate all the people that have made comments, sent us emails, gave us phone calls. I guess the question I have for the council is, normally we would move this to action at our next meeting. Is everyone comfortable with that? You know, if you can just give me a hands up or a thumbs down, but we could probably discuss this as information discussion again next time and still hear some of the same comments. So I personally would be in favor of moving it to action. I don't know that we add anything by delaying. So
Eileen, I agree with you. It's to extend the time is, I don't know the real value. We're probably going to just, I think minds are made up. I think that we would probably, it's still a mixed thing, and I would say, for the sake of the ATV group and all the people that use those machines, if the city decides to open up more of the streets like they've requested, the summer season is right upon us, and they're going to need time to get some signs up and do whatever they need to do. If the city says no, then that will give them their message on alternatives for the summer. So I don't see any point of waiting.
other council members, is my preference would be to move it to action next council meeting at the end of May. Is that acceptable to others?
No.
Yeah, I'm okay with moving it to action.
What did he say?
Okay, then we are going to put it on action. If something changes, we could probably change that. Adam, you have a comment?
Yeah, I think the only question we have to look at is if this is truly going to be something that the council is voting on and it is an ordinance change. I think in fairness to the public, and I guess Candace, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we have to do a full-on public hearing.
Okay.
So I think in making sure that, you know, if this actually is going to go to a vote and does have an ordinance change, I would recommend that we do a public hearing and have a full-on process so that we try to get it in as much publication as possible to ensure that both sides feel that the communication was given.
Okay, so if we do a public hearing, we have to publish notice of that, right? And that
Right.
would have to be done next week?
Well, I didn't get a chance to comment on the timing of this.
Okay, go ahead, Ken.
I think we need to get information as far as the health effects of this noise that would be put into our neighborhoods. You don't have any information coming on that.
And where would you,
We've
would you like that
talked about
information to be
safety, but
provided from,
I
Ken?
don't-
I mean, you read about your information, but I'm not sure where you're expecting to get that.
Well, somebody must know. The noise is a big issue. That's a major thing. You're gonna put this into neighborhoods that want it quiet. And these are not quiet machines. You don't
I
even
agree,
answer- you
they are
don't
not
even
quiet
answer the
machines.
question. The question is not being answered. You need to seek some advice.
Again,
I think we're better off if we just table this thing as far as any addition of streets within the city and proceed as we're going and find out more information before we pass something like this, as far as adding streets.
well, there seems to be some concern about doing it as a voting item for next meeting, Adam. So let's talk about it at the agenda setting, and we can decide and look at the procedure with Candace as far as how much time it would take to publish it and having an actual hearing.
Sure.
I'd be in favor of for the next meeting as long as the the requirements for what Adam had stated are met.
Right, and we do have to look at that, Isaac, now, so we'll look at that.
Well, you've been
And
on the
we
council
will-
long enough. You know what the requirements are to have a public holding or meeting.
Well,
You've
to
been on there
have a
for-
public meeting, that my concern is making a decision. If we make a decision tonight, then we have to publish the notice that we are going to have a public hearing. So
Well,
I
so
guess the
far,
question.
I think you have 4 in favor. That's a majority.
I don't believe Robin has commented.
I'm torn between wanting to just get it done and know where we fall. But the presumption of putting it into action is to increase the timeline, which presumes that it will be passed. And I feel like somehow it feels, as we're asking whether it should be on the agenda or whether we need to gather more information, I feel like we're leaning into making a decision without really making sure that we have everything we want. So I want it voted on, but I guess I'm not quite ready for action next meeting either.
Okay, and Jason, did you comment?
Yeah, I'm okay moving with a vote as long as people are getting the information that they're requesting and requirements are met in terms of public meeting.
And I think the only person that's really asked for information is Ken, and Ken would like more information on the safety regulations, Ken, about noise.
Yes, there are health issues involved here as far as.
Yeah.
Well,
May have to talk to you more about that to understand, where you think that information should come from, because we've gotten information from you and we've gotten information from state and DNR in terms of what is allowed. So I think we can explore that.
It's going to require study, reading, and the question is who's going to do it? So who's going to do this? Does DNR know?
Well, I'm referring to, I don't know. I was referring to the decibel levels that were in the rules. So,
Well, the decibels.
Adam, I think we can move it forward.
Levels are too loud for the ATVs, UTVs. They're too loud.
I think, Ken, we can discuss this in the next week and try to get you some answers. But I can't answer any more than what I've already said tonight, so.
Can I ask, I'm going to be fine either way, honestly, whether it goes to action or not. But is that something, as you do in the agenda setting, do we just do it as a courtesy that we generally have consensus before we move to action, or does that come to a vote?
It's pretty much just kind of polling the council members. I mean, President and President Pro Tem set the agenda. Any council member has a right to ask for something to be put on the agenda, Robin. But if we've had this for information discussion twice now. So at some point, you either say, I think, we're not going to talk about it anymore, which means we're not going to take any action, which I don't think is really fair to people who have brought the issue forward and that we've discussed for 2 meetings. I think
I guess my concern is that, and I understand the way we get things on the agenda, but my concern is that by getting it on the agenda, it then presumed that eventually it would come to action. And I guess that's where a year ago, when we asked to kind of maybe not put that it would be renewed every year in conversation, or that it would just automatically be renewed versus coming up every year in conversation. That's where I feel really uncomfortable that it was put on the agenda and now we're in the place where we're going to be voting on it in 2 weeks. And I get your authority in certain positions to make that call. I feel like we started a slippery slope that now we're watching us move into.
I understand your point. I also refer to what Adam said, which is that, we have options when we discuss this. We can say that, we're going to discuss it every year. We can say it's going to be 2 years, it's going to be 3 years. And I do think that is something that we should discuss. I do think that if you have a preference for that, then yes, it wouldn't come up every year. So that is something for everyone to think about. I would rather put it on for action. And if people feel that they are not able to make a decision that evening, I mean, you do have the option of tabling. Again, I'm not in favor usually of tabling things because it just prolongs a discussion and a decision that has to be made at some point. But that's my personal preference. Okay.
I'll move over to action. I think my biggest concern was just how we got to this point, I guess, or what it presumes that this can be done every single year until ultimately it sways the other direction. So
I think that's a very valid question. Okay. So yes, Adam, if we can get everything published in time, then we'll move it to action. So the other item regarding ATVs, UTVs is resolution that has been proposed requesting Wisconsin State Legislature strengthen ATV, UTV statute requirements. I don't know, Adam, if you want to address this first.
Yeah, so obviously, throughout the conversation of HTV, UTVs, there's been question about, as a council, what can you do in regards to, petitioning or lobbying the state to look into a variety of matters. So, with some of the questions that I got from council members, that's essentially what was put together. Now, this is a very, first stage draft of potentially options that you have as council members. So, what I'm asking for you guys to do is obviously really look into this resolution, as well as think about the information that you heard from both sides tonight. And that's where, what I tried to basically as a starting point was looked at some of the, 5 key areas that have kind of been the continual items of concern or question in regards to, or issues that have been brought up in regards to ATVs and UTVs, where, there's the question about, in regards to the manual about them not being registered, in regards to kind of the difference between the DOT and the DNR. Again, questions about safety, questions about noise, confusions on the definitions. So really what what you have as a council have an option or opportunity to do is determine if you do want to send something to the state, and that is something that as a council you agree upon. It's a matter of what do you want to indicate to them that you would like them to look into. You've obviously heard the concerns from both sides about, it being applied to wheel tax, that would certainly be something that it sounds like, people who have ATVs would be, potentially would consider. So again, I think, part of this resolution is as a group coming together on if this is something that as a council you want to move forward, what are the items that you agree that you want the legislature to truly look at? Are there additional whereas statements that you would like to see added to this? Are there ones that you would like to see taken out? Same thing with the concerns. So really, this is a starting point to have the conversation of, if there is something that as the council for the city of Platteville that you want to send to the state legislature, what is that? So that essentially is what this kind of conversation is going to be about. I would recommend that this is going to take more than just one meeting. So I would look at, what is in this proposed resolution, consider a lot of the information that you heard tonight. Talk to constituents to see what they would like to see in a resolution, either for or against. And then come back, and if we can get to, as a council, if you can get to a consensus, then it would be approved, and we would, as staff, would send that on to all of our state legislatures on behalf of the city of Platteville and you as the Common Council.
All right, so we are going to ask, do the once around with council members, ask if you have any questions about this proposed resolution. Isaac?
Oh, no questions on this one.
Okay, Robin?
The individuals who are registered to talk about the routes, are we going to have an opportunity to have them weigh in on this separately, or did people register separately?
I don't think anyone registered to discuss it tonight. Is that your question?
Yeah, I didn't know if people assumed when they said they wanted to talk about ATVs that they were registering for both points or not. So But otherwise, I don't have specific questions myself. We'll look at it going forward. I definitely would lean into the endorsement of the ATV club in this if possible. Can we, I don't know if we attach them or get them to, kind of sign in on it too. I think that would be impactful if that was something they were willing to do.
Okay, well, we have a couple of members on the meeting yet tonight, so certainly that would be something they could consider. Ken?
Yes, I have a couple. The first one is under 3 on this page. And the first one is the addition 2 words that within neighborhoods poses continuous safety and health concerns. So I'd like that added.
Okay.
When we go to 4 and read that, the second line, it says proponents of ATVs, UTVs. That should be opponents of ATVs, UTVs, and express that the level of decibel, that the decibel level can have health effects, adverse health effects, or impacts on the neighborhood population. So that needs to be cleared up a little bit there. Correct that as far as proponents.
Sure.
So those are the things I found right now. And as I said before, health concern is a thing we haven't talked much about it, but you start reading on it.
Okay. Kathy?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay.
And Ken caught one of the ones I had, so.
Okay. And Jason, anything to add?
I think for number 6 or number 5,
Mhm.
it says the confusion on the official definition of an ATV UTV. I would propose changing that more to what I had mentioned before in terms of
Classification,
yeah, and I had sent that the DOT example of how they classify 2-wheeled vehicles, motorcycles, mopeds, in terms of some of the standards that they use for that. So maybe just kind of referring to that for that.
Sure.
I'm wondering too, for number 3, in terms of, hitting on the safety concerns, I'm wondering if there's something that you can put in there in terms of, again, the substantial difference in terms of the safety training that's required to operate an ATV and the safety training that's required to operate a motorcycle. Just as an example in terms of how much of a drastic difference there is.
Sure.
What else was there in there? And I think, if there's any way we can just really encourage the state to work with the manufacturers in terms of figuring out like why the manufacturers continue to say don't operate these on the roads, but our state legislature is saying, oh, it's fine, you can do this, and also we're not going to require you to do anything extra in terms of certifications or anything like that. I think that's a huge one for me. Let's see. And then, just the difference in terms of how everything is enforced. ATVs are governed by the DNR. All other vehicles are governed by the DOT. Those are some of the main ones in terms of kind of highlighting those and emphasizing those within those 5 points.
Okay. Adam, you captured most of those, you think?
I think so.
All right. So we'll have that on again with the additions and suggestions put into the resolution so we can review it again. All right. So the next item is a conditional use permit for 130 Market Street. Jeff and Lisa have been patiently waiting. So we'll start with, I think, Joe.
Yes. So this regarding a request for a conditional use permit, 130 Market Street. See, that property is a 50/50 speakeasy tavern, and also which is on the second floor, and on the first floor is the barbershop rock, spa boutique. So the request is regarding the tavern, the Speakeasy Tavern. They would like to add an outdoor drinking area or a beer garden, depending how you want to define it, onto that property. So, the main business fronts City Park to the south on Market Street, but this would be on the back of the building facing Furnace Street, which is actually kind of the main entrance to the Speakeasy. They have a concrete parking area there now, and also a concrete patio area that they already have some furniture out there that's existing. So they'd like to designate a portion of that for the outdoor drinking area. They have included in their packet kind of a drawing indicating where they would like that to be located. So that is in the packet. It's approximately 13 by 37 foot area. Rather than fencing it off like most of the drinking areas do in Platteville, they're looking at some options. They haven't nailed it down completely as far as the details, but they gave several examples, which those are in your packet. They're really more partitions that would be able to be secured to the concrete, but at the same time, they could be removed on a seasonal basis if they wanted to, so they could use that parking lot in the winter, and then in the summer kind of expand and put the partitions back up. But it would be, when it's being used, it would be a defined area within that property. So generally the proposed hours of operation would be 3 p.m. to midnight Wednesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday. Obviously, it would be subject to the standard rules in the zoning ordinance that we have for outdoor drinking areas, as far as location and associated with licensed business and so forth. So from that standpoint, it's pretty straightforward, similar to other ones that we have approved in the city in the downtown area. I think the only thing a little bit different is the movable partitions. That is a little bit different, but to me it makes sense since it's a seasonal use. You might as well be able to make use of that area for parking when it's not being used in the winter. So this did go to the Planning Commission at their May 3rd meeting. They did recommend approval with a few conditions. The use is subject to the conditions in section 2206J. That's what I just mentioned as far as kind of the standard rules regarding outdoor drinking areas. Except they did recommend one modification, that the outdoor music, if it is provided, which they're basically talking about speakers for the most part, that it be allowed to continue until midnight, which matches up with their hours of operation. And they're also recommending that if there's a change of ownership in the 50/50 business, that the reapproval would take place regarding the conditional use permit for the outdoor area. So with those conditions, they would recommend approval, and staff would also recommend approval. So this does require a public hearing, so it'll be on as a public hearing at the next meeting. Any questions for me?
I have some comments.
Okay, Ken, go ahead.
I would allow this, but my concern is the music. And so the question is, since this beer garden will be close to residential will be right across the street. And this is moving over into an area that there hasn't been a beer garden before. Is that correct, Joe?
There has not been one on this property or that block.
Yes, and so you're moving into a new area, so that when you look at the decibel level, the question is going to be, what is going to be loud music, loud noise coming from this beer garden? So how are we going to determine that? And so my recommendation is that you come up with decibel reading. And the decibel reading would be at the point where the noise from the beer garden strikes the property line of the adjacent residential properties. So you take a reading so that you read at that point. We did the same thing as far as with the Roundtree house. So you look at what the reading is as far as when that noise comes from the beer garden, passes over the street, and it goes to the property line. And you can also measure what the noise is at the house or the property. So that when you go out there and you check on what the noise is, and somebody says it's too loud, you're going to have a way to determine by using a sound meter to check on the noise. And does the city of Platteville have a sound meter? Does the chief of police have a sound meter?
We do not, Ken.
I think you'll need to get sound meter or meters
Currently, our ordinance is not
checking
based
on these things.
Currently, our ordinance isn't based on decibel levels.
That's right. It'll be on decibel level.
Well, currently, our ordinance is not based on that.
It's not. No, we have no, it's just on human being, what the ear is telling you and the brain is telling you.
We have a very subjective ordinance that does not list decibel levels and it does not list times of day.
Okay, but when you receive a complaint now, how are you going to judge what the sound level is as far as loud noise, loud music? And so the sound meter gives you a way to do this. Now, here's a situation that people that are listening to the music, supposedly they can have a decibel level about 70. So that's the leisure level for sound for those people. But now, as I pointed out before, when you have somebody that's adjacent in a house, the sound level is not 70, it's probably going to be more like 40, 50. So you're going to have opposing things here as far as what's occurring. So you're going to have some way to moderate that sound as to how much sound is allowed from the beer garden. So that's my concern about this particular this is a conditional use permit about the conditional use. So we can put requirements on what the sound level can be coming from that property, even though we don't have it in our city ordinance, because this is something we could be adding to the requirements as far as the conditional use permit. So I think with that, I will stop. So I'm looking forward to your getting a sound meter. It needs to be gotten. We have noise all over in this city. I live next to the Pizza Hut. The sound levels from the Uno's, the bar, that place was not there when I moved there in 1969. It is now loud. They have loud noise, loud music, certain times of the week. We have been subjected to that. And so that is something that needs to be looked at, because I don't believe that the people around there should be continually subjected to that. I at one time, my wife and I decided to build something there at the end of Court Street. We decided not to because it's too noisy. So thank you very much.
All right, Ken. Isaac, do you have any comments?
No question. I do have a couple comments. So if I recall right, I've seen this on two different committees that I've sit on. I believe Jeff and Lisa already have an outdoor patio on the back of the building, which allows them to sit there and entertain on the outside of their building. So, and I've spoken with a couple of the neighbors that are within a block of that area and have currently, those neighbors have had no issues currently with Jeff and Lisa and what they do, and have no concerns of the expansion, what they plan on doing. And one neighbor actually stated that it was nice to see a person or a group that owns a building like that put in the effort, the time, and the money that they have put into that particular building. So, like I said, I've seen this before. I would be in favor of passing this conditional use permit. So,
All right, Robin.
I guess I'm in favor. I like the idea. I sadly still need to visit this place of business because it's definitely an asset and a nice fine addition to our community. The outdoor seating sounds wonderful. It does, require some consideration of the neighbors. So I wanted to just double check, verify procedure. What did we send out letters or do we send out letters to the neighbors on this before it's finalized? And then kind of, I guess I would second Ken's comments about it would be nice for an ordinance that was objective. Because I know it when I hear it, kind of reference for law enforcement does leave that up for, it's definitely up for their discernment, but it does leave open complaints of discrimination if people feel that they were unfairly called out where their neighbors were allowed to do something different. So I'll second Ken's kind of request for maybe some clarity in ordinances, but I don't think that that should hold up this particular project. I think we should move forward with common sense and courtesies, their requests for types of music, and their respect for their neighbors. So I would like to see it go forward, but just kind of looking forward to the potential for ordinances to have more clarity.
Okay. Kathy?
I'm definitely in favor. I agree with the comments about it's really nice to see people take pride in their building and make more things happen, especially in the downtown. So for right now, that's really all I have.
Jason?
Nothing further tonight.
Okay, so Joe, this will be posted then as a public hearing?
Yes, so to answer Robin's question, yes, the neighbors were notified regarding this. Actually, it went out prior to the Plan Commission meeting to notify them of both meetings. And then there is also a notice in the paper regarding the public hearing.
Okay.
Were there comments to relay from that?
Actually, I just received questions. Neighbors that just wanted more information. They didn't express an opinion one way or another. They just wanted more information.
Okay. Thank you for answering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Platteville inclusivity update.
Yeah. So the Task Force for Inclusivity, Diversity, and Equity has kind of taken on a couple of different initiatives that they're going to be working on. One is obviously the kind of review of the flag policy that the council asked that organization or that committee to look at. So they're going to start kind of reviewing that and providing some kind of recommendations and feedback. They also made the kind of decision that they want to stick with the employee, volunteer, and elected official working equity, diversity, inclusion statement that was created by the council and kind of work on making some tweaks. But they were definitely appreciative of kind of the council and staff's work on that. So they're going to start looking into that. One of the things that they're continuing to do is working with Jonathan Brown, who is based out of Minneapolis, the Minneapolis area, but originally was actually at UW Platteville at one point in time. He is going to be helping the Tide Task Force kind of look at a couple of different things in regards to inclusivity, diversity, and equity. They're going to be looking at it at their next meeting here at the end of May, doing kind of a asset mapping kind of project where they're going to go out and look at different partners in different areas to kind of bring into the Tide organization. And then they're also going to start to be looking at different kind of They want to do some different subcommittees and kind of break out so that obviously, they're finding that having about a 1 to 2 hour meeting is not giving some of the members enough time to kind of work on different kind of areas that they have passions on. So they're going to be looking at kind of starting a couple of subcommittees out of that group. So it was a very exciting meeting, and we're looking forward to kind of seeing how that group grows and what potentially they're going to start bringing as far as recommendations. So that is definitely exciting. One of the things that I'm working on is I've been attending, it started last Thursday, is the City of Madison's Human Resource Department is putting on kind of an inclusive leadership conference where every Thursday here in May, they have a couple of different topics. And the one last Thursday was specifically on the concept of disabilities and kind of that topic. So that is something I'm going to be talking to the staff about as to potentially how the specifically with the city of Platteville could look at potentially with hiring and with also with projects, how potentially the city of Platteville could get involved with individuals that have disabilities or potentially groups, and looking at specific positions that may fall into that realm that could specifically allow for somebody that has a particular disability to do various kind of tasks or projects for the city. So that's something we're going to kind of continue to flesh out. And then one thing that was not on the staff note, but we continue to work on is all of our department directors are working with the Southwest Rainbow Alliance and have started to nail down some days. Specifically, our police department is looking at 2 meetings here in early June, where they're going to be running kind of some scenario planning with the Southwest Rainbow Alliance over kind of a variety of different kind of topics and scenarios that happen in law enforcement, and kind of reviewing with the Southwest Rainbow Alliance about different ways to approach members of the LGBTQ community when it comes to particular police issues. Our Park and Recreations Department is looking at as well, and so is our Public Works. So that is the update I have for you right now.
Anyone have any questions for Adam? All right, seeing no response. City of Platteville mission statement.
All right, so as we've kind of looked at this a couple of different times, I have now, based on the feedback that I received, and we had a little bit more feedback again from the last meeting, we kind of have broken out 3 potential options for the council to consider. There is the tentative vision statement example, which has basically been updated from the comprehensive plan. Some of the things that were changed out of the last version is, instead of university community, we changed it to engaged educational community to ensure that we're not only talking about the university, but we're talking about our school district as well. We also added in a couple of things in regards to focus on expanding affordable housing, because that obviously is one that continues to be a focus, not only in our strategic plan, but also in obviously our previous statement that we had. And then obviously one of the new ones that was kind of thrown in there is we've talked about it a couple of times over the years in regards to creating kind of a motto or a statement example. And again, this was a very rough draft version. This is something that potentially we could do as kind of a contest or a Facebook update. But I just came up with Unearthing the Driftless Region. Again, you have the right to kind of pick that to shreds or choose something different. But essentially what we're trying to do is figure out from a council standpoint where we would like to go with this, if this is something that you feel this can be an action item. And again, these constant statements can kind of be tweaked, but it is part of our strategic plan that we wanted to kind of come up with, finalizing a vision statement, a mission statement, and a motto as part of our marketing, so that we can start doing that over the next 3 years and really putting that on any of our kind of website information, or some of our particular marketing themes. So that's the latest update that we made.
All right, let's give it 2 more weeks and see if anybody has any more ideas, Adam, but I appreciate the fact that you would like to get it done for the marketing aspect of it. So please look it over one more time, folks. Text Adam any ideas you have, any comments you might have, and let's hope we can get this done in June. COVID-19 municipal update.
Okay, so most updated information that I have here for you guys is As of today, the past 14 days, Grant County has averaged 2.3 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. So that number has increasingly been dropping over the last couple of weeks. So that is definitely a good sign. I am happy to report that if you go on the website today, this is the first time that I can remember that there were no new confirmed cases of COVID-19 reported, as well as probable. So that is the first time we have seen a 0 in both of those categories, I think, since I started reporting this. So that is definitely encouraging news. As far as the information, there's a total of 4,908 total confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the county. 4,795 have recovered. There have been a total of 85 total deaths of people who have tested positive and 7 total deaths of person who are considered probable. As far as the UW Platteville's information, as of today, they have 37,300 tests that they have done through their student health services in regards to COVID-19. They've had 127 students test positive, 5 external positive tests have been confirmed for students, and 3 external positive tests have been confirmed for employees. In our weekly calls that we have with them, they are still testing about 350 students a day, and that is down a little bit, and that's because they were able to, as part of the UW systems policy, they were able to you no longer have to be tested if you have been vaccinated, and it's been past kind of the 14-day period after your test. So they are continuing to do vaccination clinics. They have another one planned for, I believe, this Friday, where they will be offering Johnson & Johnson as well as, I believe, Moderna to the students. So then as of today, it's been reported that there's been 4,872,575 vaccines that have been allocated in the state of Wisconsin. 4,724,130 have been administered. The total Wisconsin average is at 44.5% for those that have had at least one vaccination. Grant County is at 38%. So about 19,579 residents have received at least one dose of the vaccine. And with our 65 and up population, 87.3% of the population has received the vaccine. So again, in conjunction with recommendations from Grant County Health Department, Southwest Health, and Wisconsin Department of Health Services, and the CDC, the city is continuing to have the requirement of face coverings when you are in municipal-owned buildings or outside of municipal-owned property with social distancing is not possible. That is obviously something that our state of emergency that the city is under is set to expire here at the end of June. So during our council meetings in June, we will be having some more kind of conversations in regards to where things are at with kind of the CDC recommendations. But our kind of hope and intention is that we will be looking to resume the council meeting in July, I believe the 13th. Is when we would be anticipating to start coming back to the council chambers for meetings in person, as well as looking at particularly what the policy will be in regards to face masks. At that point, the vaccine will have been available to anybody that would be interested. So that is definitely something that we're going to be looking at. Our intention next meeting is to start bringing information in regards to the American Recovery Act, because we have now gotten the U.S. Treasury guidance. So both myself and Director Maurer have been on numerous calls with the league and trying to figure out about what potentially the latest estimate again continues to be about a little over $1 million that the city is going to be receiving from that act that was passed by Congress that can be utilized towards a variety of kind of initiatives that the council can look at. So my intention is to kind of have a kind of first information and discussion for you as council members to review, to start considering what potentially those funds could be utilized for and some recommendations from staff. That is the update that I have for you.
All right, some good news there, Adam. All right, folks, thank you for your patience, and I believe we have covered everything on the agenda, so the only thing we need is a motion to adjourn.
So
I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Sorry, Kathy.
Kathy
It's
and
okay. I defer to Robin.
All right, Robin and then Kathy. So we'll vote. Candace, yes, we have a motion by Kathy and a second by Robin. All right.
I was having an issue with my mute there. Shanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cock,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.